Today on the Topping Show, a student is beat up at school and the principal attempted to covering up, but it ended up going viral. Supreme Court allows Idaho puberty blocker ban for kids to stand. Anheuser Busch Clydesdales ad gets one comment in 24 hours, if you don't count mine. Tesla to lay off 10% of their staff. General Motors is moving out of its iconic Detroit headquarters. Protestors go viral for blocking multiple airport highways while meeting very few consequences, while other protesters at a different event peacefully praying are more formally prosecuted. Also, Trump media and technology stock continues to crash. All of that and much, much more on The Topping Show. Thank you everyone for taking the time to tune in today. Today's episode of The Topping Show is proudly sponsored by Topping Technologies. Topping Technologies is an IT value-added reseller and services company with a special proficiency in IT security. Heck, I see their founder at least twice a day. I say he's quite handsome and brilliant. He's me, you see, that's the joke. If you're an IT leader or a business owner, you can reach the team at sales@toppingtechnologies.com. Also trying to get to 4,000 subscribers by the end of the month, so if you could click that button and tell your friends, I would greatly appreciate it. Now going over to the business part of the podcast, you have Tesla to lay off 10% of their staff. Now this was brought to us thanks to Emma Thorburn over at LinkedIn News. And they specifically say that Tesla will cut 10% of its global staff, or as many as 14,000 employees, according to an email that was published via NBC. In a note, Elon Musk also writes that the duplication of roles and the need to cut costs are driving the layoffs. The automaker, quote, nearly doubled its headcount over the last 3 years as it ramped up production at several plants, but last month posted its first quarterly decline deliveries in 4 years, which is quite detrimental and bad to say the least. And we see this continuing more and more with the EV slowdown. It's one of those instances where one of the fastest growing areas of consumer preferences in terms of automobiles is hybrids, which I find the antithesis of fun. If you want to really have a car that'll last a lifetime and, smile every time you drive it, personally I say get something with an internal combustion engine and 3 pedals, also known as a manual transmission. Granted, I know for the millionth time it's not as fast, but you'll have a lot more fun. You can work out it yourself, and truth be told, I smile ear to ear every time I actually shift the vehicle. But nevertheless, hybrids are growing in popularity in the US, and Tesla is 100% EV, which while the government is forcing down our throats via mandates and emissions, the consumer, they're not quite buying it, quite literally. So it'll be interesting to see. It is disappointing to see some of these people being laid off. A lot of people, another analysts are noting that EV sales slowed so much in the first quarter, rising less than 3%, while hybrid sales rose 43%, which again highlights the delta and the difference between the two product categories in the automotive community. And again, when it comes to EVs, I can't help but think it's mostly a luxury item or a fancy toy for rich people. It's one of those instances where, again, will not last your family a lifetime. The batteries are $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 to replace, and you're also locked in like a smartphone. Your friendly mechanic Bob down the street can't work on it. You're locked in. So there are a lot of detriments and downfalls to EVs personally, but there are some people who prefer them. Now, granted, Tesla, they're going to try to cut costs as much as possible. They also have the big 800-pound gorilla, or perhaps more appropriately, the 800-pound Panda, or Chinese Dragon, aka China with BYD. That automotive company is exponentially increasing in hybrid and electric automotive sales. And unless the US slaps some astronomical tariffs on them, once those can enter the US market, I can't but think that'll just destroy most American manufacturers who can't compete with China's better conditions in terms of having a lower cost of business, lower regulations, lower labor cost. They have a lot of advantages. And they make some exceptional products, the iPhone being one of the best examples of Chinese manufacturing. So it'll be interesting to see. Let me know, do you plan on buying an electric vehicle this year? I mean, unprecedented economic uncertainty. A lot of people don't even know what's going to go on these days. But as always, it'll be fascinating to hear what you have to say. Other interesting business news, you have General Motors moving out of its iconic Detroit headquarters, aka the Renaissance Center. GM, well, we could debate who built Detroit. At one time, Detroit was the most prosperous city on the planet. But then competition and unions kind of saw to the end of that, and now the American automotive community is a shadow or a ghost of what it was. It's fascinating to think at one point they had well over 70% of the market share in United States automobile sales. Now, granted, everyone scaled back in the pandemic in terms of needed for office space, and GM, of course, they were not an exclusion to the rule. They had less need for office space. You're locked into those big buildings, those contracts for several years. So it's not, I mean, it is surprising they're moving out of their iconic Detroit headquarters because, again, that Renaissance building is one of the most popular things about Detroit. It's got the iconic four towers or the four surrounding towers with the one in the middle. And I apologize, I'm just working on picture-in-picture technology and kind of hammering out the details or hammering out the nuances, or how to get it work 100% properly. So ideally for every segment of the show, I'll also be able to pop it up, but still working on that. I got the the Elgato Stream Deck Plus with the knobs. So something I'm working on. I appreciate everyone's support. But when it goes back to the Detroit, Mary Barra said they're going to move into another building, not larger, but it's going to be more modern. And she says we're going to be at the heart of the city. Well, this is the CEO of General Motors, my dear Mary Barra. She says, quote, "We're going to live in the heart of the city. Our people are already excited to be in Detroit and live here." I mean, no one in the history of Detroit has said that in the past 70, 80 years. I mean, unless there's a stand-up comedian, then yes, it is a quite hilarious joke. I mean, my family grew up in Michigan, and I mean, one of the most ironic things is escaping communism. The one place you could argue that's worse than communist Cuba is Southside Detroit. They're both pretty rough situations. Now, she also continued to say, quote, "I think having this workspace that's modern and new really fits the way people work today. I think it's definitely going to be an attraction," which I'm not sure. I mean, it looks like they were in the old buildings for, years upon years upon years. I mean, well, it's a couple of decades, actually. So it looks like GM bought the old building in 1996 and moved it into its headquarters from there, north side downtown. Been there ever since. And its new building does look quite fancy and modern, but I'm not sure. It looks like the Renaissance Center was actually built by Henry Ford II, who formed the coalition in the 1970s in an effort to reinvigorate Detroit's downtown, which it's not just a business issue, they have a cultural issue and political issue as well. There's a reason business aren't moving to Detroit to actually, start companies and, expand. But I don't think this new building is going to attract top talent. It used to be a thing where you could have a corporate campus and a building that might be a contributing factor to someone choosing to work for a company. But these days, with so many people working from home, and granted, I know it's not going to be the best solution 100% of the time. There are a few situations where it just makes sense just to work, from home. Sometimes you do have to go there to the office, depending on your industry and what your role is. But let me know, do you think, would that really give you a compelling reason to go work in Detroit? Because they're not going to be there. It does look state of the art. It's going to be a new fancy building. Would that make you want to go join General Motors and work in downtown Detroit? I mean, personally, no, absolutely not. But as always, be fascinated to hear what you have to say. Now, going over to the culture part of the podcast, you have prayers at an abortion clinic jailed, but protesters blocking airport highway for 5 hours and seemingly get basically zero or little ramifications. Bizarre, although not too uncommon these days in the United States, unfortunately. Now, this was brought to us thanks to an account known by End Wokeness on X Twitter, and I'm going to attempt to pull it up here, see if the technology wants to work for me today. Perhaps it does. There we go. Let me try to expand this a little bit. So End Wokeness says, quote, "One of these groups was allowed to block the Golden Gate Bridge today for 5 hours. The other group faces 11 years in prison for a criminal conspiracy against civil rights for praying in an abortion clinic. Realize where we are," unquote. And I got if you can't see the screen, if you're just tuning in audio, they got 1.7 million views earlier this week in the first 24 hours and 33,000 likes, which is viral to say the least, as the youth might say, and also is just kind of disgusting to show the priorities of not just politicians, but you also have the local police who comply, and the priorities of who's allowed to break the law and who, seemingly isn't breaking the law, but they're still going to punish them. Now, again, when it comes to any protest, blocking a road, let's look at this. So this is for, they say, stop the world for Gaza. That's a big sign. And they're blocking 3 lanes on the highway. Controversy aside in terms of, Israel-Palestine, That, which obviously Hamas is terrorists, morally vacuous, disgusting people, or group, whatever I call them, or terrorist, more appropriate probably. But, or not probably, yes. But it's one of those instances where no matter what your cause, when you're blocking the street like that, nobody likes you. You're not building up support. You're just using fear, which unfortunately some politicians in the U.S. will just acquiesce and do whatever you want. But your average person, if they see this on the road, you got all those cars backed up. And surprisingly, the police are just standing doing nothing. It looks like there's a couple of police officers back there just standing by a couple of cars. And yeah, you have police vehicles there. Why are they arresting these scumbags, getting them off the bridge so that people can get to work? It's almost unfathomable. All these people who protest during the day, I always wonder, like, what do you do for work? Like, are you unemployed or on government subsidies or handouts? I mean, ever since graduating college, I've never worked less than 60 hours a week, even when I was only paid 40. And ever since I started business, I always tell people 105 hours a week can't be beat, because that's about how many hours I put in. I can't fathom just Tuesday afternoon or whatever this took place, just going over to a bridge and holding a sign and standing in front of a vehicle. It's ridiculous, to say the least. Now, juxtaposition, go to the other one. If the mouse would work for me. So it looks like, I'm not sure how great the audio is coming in. So they're getting arrested. And granted, some might argue they can't sing greatly. I mean, I have no ground to stand on. My voice is definitely not better than theirs. And yet, we consistently see these people being persecuted. Now, going down to the top comments, you have, let's see here, if I can be able to attempt to scroll over here. Where'd that mouse go? Yeah, Paul Zazupa saying, two-tiered justice system reigns supreme in Biden's America. People praying on January 6th and in protest of abortion get arrested, whereas people shutting down cities to promote Hamas get applauded. Absolutely despicable. Unquote, getting 276 likes. You also have SK Cartoon saying, quote, peaceful, the media has a crazed woman saying peaceful protest, and some hooligans tearing down George Washington and putting paint on it. And his juxtaposition is that same reporter saying hate crime when it's a truck doing a burnout over the trans pride flag, which, again, in terms of marketing, why would you put a flag on the ground where cars drive and birds crap? That's just bad marketing in general. For whatever symbol you want to put, why put it on the ground? Now, that did get 1,000 likes, which is quite a few to say the least. Scrolling down to a couple more. We have, let's see here. Raise your hand if you're sick of a two-tier justice system, getting 520 likes. You have another meme saying, quote, liberals are allowed to do whatever they want, whenever they want. Rules are for Republicans. Like, getting 205 likes, which is quite a few to say the least. Scrolling down, you got Jim Halpert from The Office doing the cliche chalkboard comparison. The first one says, everything horrible that they said would happen to you under the orange man. And then juxtaposed to that says, quote, actually happened under the pedo man, unquote, getting 563 likes. Libercat Media TM says, quote, all lives splatter. No one cares about your protest, and it's people being run over by a vehicle. I venture to say it's probably a Ford Bronco, perhaps, or a Jeep, maybe a Jeep. Some type of sports utility vehicle. That did get 213 likes, which is, again, quite a few to say the least. And, again, blocking roads has never gained any favor for any political organization. Let me know in the comments. When was the last time you saw someone protesting in the streets where you increased your thought or opinion about that organization? Again, if you're standing outside a building, you got some picket signs. If you're not in the way, I can't help but think people would be more interested in your cause. Maybe they'll learn a little bit about it. Maybe they'll search you on the internets and do some research. But again, standing in the road just makes it... Nothing good can come from that. And yet, organizations keep doing protests on the roads, which, again, is ridiculous to say the least. We'll see if we got one more down here. Libercat Media TM says, quote, in case you didn't notice, we don't give a crap about, looks like the Palestinian flag burning, getting 117 likes. I mean, and again, as you get to say, they're getting roasted, to say the least, on all the comments here. Well, in regards to the protesters, they're just getting roasted in terms of, who's agreeing with the actual original poster. I mean, everyone is agreeing with end wokeness because, again, you're not buying any favor by having this, and I can't but wonder, I mean, will we ever see a justice system where everyone is treated equally under the law? I mean, do you think these are outliers? Right? Again, on maybe a high level, they do start to add up in the aggregate, but we're seeing, especially the past 48 months, we've been seeing more and more of this. People being arrested just for sharing a meme on the internet, or as some might call them, a meme. Let me know. Have you noticed more of these types of unequal injustices? Is this news to you? Is this the first time you've heard this type of thing? I mean, as I always say, let me know in the comments. I'd be fascinated to hear what you have to say. Oh, the tech will work for me. Kind of. Maybe. Not so much. Other interesting cultural news, you have a student beat up and the school tried to cover it up, many speculating that perhaps race is a contributing factor. Now, this was first brought to us thanks to Libs of TikTok on X Twitter, and we'll see, it looks like there's an error in terms of the actual coverage of the page on X Twitter. It says the media cannot be played, maybe if I reload it, but regardless, the text, geez Louise, if it doesn't crash on me, Libs of TikTok said, quote, breaking news, a student at Wilson Middle School in Wilson BSD D9 savagely beat up by another student. I reviewed emails from the principal where he tried covering it up and asked the parent to remove the video because he didn't want it getting out. The school is reportedly refusing to provide parents with any updates and any disciplinary measures. I'm told asking parents to remove content from social media criticizing the school is a common occurrence. What's going on? Hashtag Wilson BSD7. And as youth might say, it went viral to say the least, getting 2.2 million views and 15,000 likes. And let's see if I just reload the page here, see if we get lucky. Oh yeah, here we go. Let's see if we get some volume here. See here. So again, looks like going back here. After a certain point, it's no longer a fight. You're just beating the crap out of someone. And if you're only tuning in, it appears to be African American student beating up a white kid. The crowd is mixed, and there's probably maybe 20 people in the crowd, just standing around doing nothing. While these students, I was going to say fight. It was really just one student just beating the crap out of the other student. So moral and cultural decay in a myriad of ways, including why didn't anyone stand up and say, hey, enough is enough, and defend the person who's on the ground. And that's another thing. Maybe I'm the only one thinking this in the comments, but we will obviously review them. But it's definitely not good news, and I can't but see more and more of these public schools just trying to sweep things under the rug and never actually address it, never discipline the students, never do anything. And again, the 800-pound gorilla in the room, or 800-pound elephant, whatever metaphor you want to choose, I think one of the biggest issues is fatherless homes. We've been talking about this for decades, and there's so many high correlations of negative behavior. It's obviously not great for the student. I mean, who's teaching these kids at home? Who's their moral compass? What kind of family life do they have? You're not allowed to ask these questions these days, supposedly, because they might be too harsh. You can't dare say a nuclear family is an exceptional way, or the best invention since the dawn of time to actually raise a family and facilitate a child's needs to grow and develop. And I realize I might be speaking too fast. I appreciate everyone's feedback in the comments. That is something I'm actually trying to work on, is decreasing my speech rate, since I know naturally I speak very, very quickly. That is something I am actually trying to work on. So I appreciate everyone's patience. And again, thanks to the subscribers, we'll be able to get the picture-in-picture technology over there. And it'll get better and better. So again, I appreciate everyone's patience with my little ADHD thought train there. Now, going to the comments here, you've got someone by the name of Sally saying, quote, homeschool your kids. You can't trust adults in the public school system. Keep your kids safe. And there's a meme of the kid laughing. It says, he just got the news for homeschooling. I got 1.1 thousand likes, which, yes, is one of those instances where you might have to make a lot of sacrifices, especially in this economy with our government on the left and the right causing world, 40-year hyperinflation. You're going to have to make a lot of sacrifices or move your family geographically and to facilitate a type of environment where you can have a single income supporting a family. I know it's not good. I know it's not easy in a lot of instances, but I'll also argue, that's probably one of the most important investments you can make is homeschooling your kids these days, not just to protect them physically for some of these other students, but also morally, intellectually. We have 32-year low ACT scores in the United States for students, and yet the teachers unions say they deserve more money when they just seem to fail time and time again, in addition to indoctrinating students with sexual ideologies, which are in no way appropriate for any education, any public school system, I would argue. Now, scrolling down a little bit more, there's a TikTok reply to that meme saying truth. Let me see here. Now, disappointingly enough, Planet of Memes responded. Their name is Planet of Memes, and yet they responded in simple text form. And on the day I get picture-in-picture. Come on now. But nevertheless, this alleged Planet of Memes simply says, another commercial for homeschooling, unquote, getting 1.1 thousand likes. And of course, there's a TikTok respondent saying yes, because yes. You also have Paul Zupa saying, another white teen pummeled at school. This is just getting worse. Anti-whiteism is sadly raging in America and in our schools, unquote, getting 1.7 thousand likes, being one of the most viral responses thus far. And again, I always am one of those folks where you should treat everyone equally. You shouldn't discriminate against any race. You should judge a man by his actions, not by factors that he can't control, like your gender, your gender, your age, your race. And yet, the United States is just all too common and is culturally allowed and encouraged to discriminate and make fun of people that are white or Christian or Catholic. That's one religion you're allowed to roast in comedy, which, again, I think comedy should make fun of everyone equally. But we also see discrimination on religion on the basis of religion as well in the United States. Scrolling down, we have the Oregon Trail meme. It says, you have died of diversity, unquote, getting 1,000 likes. And aging me a little bit, that was one of the original video games back in the day, was Oregon Trail. Truth be told, if you never played it, there has to be an emulator out there on the internet. I suggest trying it out. It is quite comical, and it's one of those classics, so to say. Scrolling down, thought there'd be more memes. All right, we got another meme from, it's like a Yogi Bear meme. And it has Yogi Bear, and it says, and it's from Nova 9, and Nova 9 with the meme also said, quote, is that white supremacy or climate change? I'm confused. And it's Yogi Bear says, is it them again? And it says, it always is them, Boo Boo, getting 49 likes. Let's see here. You also have someone by the name of Amber King saying, quote, a principal in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, didn't want this one getting out there either. Read a bit of his statement in my replies. I have many questions. And it appears to be yet another instance of a student being beat up, getting 31 likes. So we're seeing this happen more and more in public schools and more of these fights. And I can't but wonder, are public schools going to get better anytime soon? What are the odds that the schools are going to increase in quality, or they're going to somehow maybe actually crack down on this? I'm not saying the odds are zero, but I can't but think the odds are probably 0.0000825, maybe. Let me know. Have you seen this happen more and more? Do you think this is being blown out of proportions? Do you think this is just a couple isolated incidents? Let me know. As always, it'd be fascinating to hear what you have to say. Other interesting cultural news, you have Anheuser Busch Clydesdale added flops, getting 1 comment in 7 hours and 2 comments in 24 hours. Although just 1 if you consider that one other comment was from me. Now, go ahead without further ado, pop that up on the screen there. And as you can see, this ad probably would have worked maybe several years ago, back before the controversy, and they lost $1.4 billion in sales after spending $185,000 to hire Dylan Mulvaney as a brand ambassador. perhaps the largest negative ROI or return on investment in business history when it comes to a marketing campaign. I can't help but think, all the other ones are, you could debate is worse than that, were smaller fiscally, but they did put the companies out of business. Now, that being said, Anheuser Busch InBev has 40 plus beer brands in their portfolio, multi-billion-dollar company. They're not going to go out of business anytime soon. Now, they have a futile attempt to try to increase their sales with some of this old cliche marketing. This one has a couple pictures of, I guess they didn't put the pronouns, so I don't know for sure, but I'm going to guess women and Clydesdale horses. And this is from Anheuser Busch, their specific profile on X Twitter, and they say, quote, "When Budweiser USA Clydesdales aren't bringing people together at a parade or stadium, they're being cared for by a team whose resilience and determination embody the American spirit, turning moments into memories for 40,000 communities across America. That's who we are," unquote. Though, grammatically speaking, they should probably alter it to say, "That's who we were." Because again, for 30% of the market for Bud Light buyers, you pissed them off to the point where they'll never buy your product again. Even if the CEO for the former CIA operative Brendan Whitworth comes out and says, "We made a mistake, we messed up, I acknowledge I am a moron," or mentally vacuous perhaps is a nicer way of saying it, I don't think they might get 5% of their sales back, but they're not going to get a majority of that 30% that they so brilliantly lost thanks to Alyssa Heiderchild, the proud VP of marketing who thought hiring Dylan was a good idea. And targeting children is a good idea. Celebrating 365 days of womanhood, terrible idea, of course. Of course, obvious to everyone, including perhaps a horse. Pun and reference to this part of the show intended. Now, again, I don't know who's in charge of the marketing, but in terms of, if you're going to pick someone to embody your brand, this is who they chose. Let me pull this up really quick. So say a fairly large gal, and she's wearing a polo, so not F minus for marketing, but I want to say maybe D, because as we know, all men always suit up. Well, perhaps maybe dress. And she's wearing khakis, which some people call kahikis. That's a little fancy. Going up to the Gap, Old Navy. I see what you're going there, but you're also on a farm. I don't think farmers wear khakis or polos. I mean, how is she not wearing a flannel shirt and a cowboy hat? She is hatless, folks. This is a gal, she's holding the reins to two horses. They're the cute cliche Clydesdale horses that they used to have a successful brand around those horses for decades, which is brilliant because, again, with horses, you don't have to pay them a salary or anything. That's a brilliant brand ambassador. And I was going to say, most people probably think horses, they look pretty close. So if one dies and, another one rises from the grave, or more accurately is born, there's not going to be much backlash and consumers getting angry because you switch to brand ambassador like you would for some type of human actor or a cliche celebrity. So that's one of the pictures they chose. Was they're on the farm, she's holding the reins for two Clydesdales. Another one is another gal with the same uniform. It's khaki pants and a polo, again on a farm, and she's inside doing something with their hair. Hilariously enough, they still have the message that says, a little disclaimer in the top corner, and it says message for 21 plus, insinuating this is supposed to be for more mature people. And yet they paid Dylan Mulvaney $185,000, whose audience member is about 15 years old on TikTok, to sell beer. Ironic, interesting. Another picture is a contrarian. She's not wearing the red polo. She's wearing a blue polo, which you cannot even see a company logo on the sleeve. F minus for marketing. How do you not have a logo there? I should probably put one on my laptop for my tech company, but nevertheless, I have a logo on screen that you can see. And yet, she has a blue polo, but she's smiling, kind of. I mean, she kind of looks dead inside. She's smiling without showing teeth, kind of like a grimace. Probably because she works there. But she's holding the horse. Then the last of the photo collage is maybe a guy with a hat. And he's holding the reins of the horse, which, I mean, he's pretty petite. I almost thought he was a jockey. But, granted, I'm not an equestrian connoisseur, but I know you don't use Clydesdale horses for racing. You use them for carrying your mediocre beer. Uphill both ways, obviously, if it's, back in my day. And yet he's just standing there awkwardly, wearing a weird cowboy. Well, it's not even a cowboy hat. It's just a baseball hat. A baseball hat inside a farm. Who's in charge of their fashion, folks? Because that is F minus. Now, didn't go viral. quite the antithesis. It got 2 comments. That's it. I might be a little biased, granted, but I think the first comment is probably the best one. It's from a handsome gentleman. He's named The Topping Show, in which he says, 1 year, 1.4 billion in lost sales. These old ad themes aren't working. Not sure if you are outsourcing marketing, but whoever is in charge isn't helping turn the horse carriage around, unquote. A+ for wordplay, turn around, turn things around, use the horse carriage reference. Obviously, I'm biased because it's me. But that was one comment. It got 0 likes, unless I like it myself. Oh, it got 1 like from myself. But in all seriousness, it only got 10 views, which is also nothing. Now, Anheuser Busch, they got 1,907 views. If we scroll up there, yeah, they got 35 likes. I don't know who's liking this, but they got 2 comments. One's from me with the tumbleweed gif, or as the youth might say, a gif, and the other one is Budweiser replying, which, again, they own that brand. They said, quote, couldn't do it without them, unquote, getting 7 likes. They also used the beer glass emoji, and yet, technically, pretty much, all their beer is transported via trucks these days, so you can certainly do it without them. I'm not even sure their sales would be hit by 1% if they were to come out and just say we're done with the Clydesdale theme. Now, Budweiser did get 7 likes, and it looks like they even got a response from the name of Teresa. So you got someone named Teresa responding with, what is it? The beer stein emoji. And her name is, let's see, is she a real person? It's just some type of robot or someone who's mentally vacuous or both. Let's see, go to Teresa's profile. Her name is I'm Not Your Cup of Tea. So I guess she's British. And what do you know? She just wants free crap. So she's reposting for Budweiser, some gift card, Bud Light. Look at all this. She wants to win She wants to win tickets to more sports balls games with Budweiser. All she did, she's just reposting for all this free crap. An opportunity to win Captain Crunch, which, if you're over 12 years old, why are you eating Captain Crunch? It's just sugar in a can, or more accurately, sugar in a bowl. She wants to win sports ball tickets, gift cards. So the one response they got, with the exception of me, was from someone who just wants free gift cards and free crap. I don't think that's really is that really building your brand? Have they made any additional money off this advertisement? Presumably they paid someone to take those pictures. They paid someone to probably edit them, change not the font of a picture, but change the darkness or the tone. They invested resources into this, post. And yet the 2 responses, one came from Budweiser, and the response to that comment was from someone who just wants free stuff. With myself being the one of 2 original comments. I don't want to say the brand is dead, but on social media, it's on life support. The only time they ever get anything more than a couple comments is when they're giving away free crap, which then you have all the people, it has to be some type of automated service, but you have all the people who just automatically seemingly reply like whatever hashtag they want so they could win a case of Bud Light. Which Lord only knows what you would do with that case, considering I don't think many people would want to drink it. Can't help but think, well, what would you do if you, quote-unquote, won a case of Bud Light? Perhaps perfect analogy for being a winner and a loser at the same time. Personally, I guess you could use my favorite example, where I think I've thought of 20 on the show thus far. If I were to win one of those contests, I suppose you could use it for ballast if you're a hot air balloonist. Wherein, the higher you want to go, sometimes you get rid of weight. In the old days, you use sandbags. In this case, you use Bud Light. So that way you would decrease the weight of the hot air balloon and you go up higher. Now, in this case, you would cut off the case of Bud Light and the case would fall to the ground. However, the case of beer could hit someone in the head, which would be arguably less detrimental to their health than if they were to actually consume the product. So heaven forbid, what if the Bud Light case hit someone in the head, and in doing so, it ruptured the can and leaked into the person's mouth. Now that, I can't think of many experiences that would be more unpleasant than that. But, ballast for a hot air balloon, that is something you could use it for. But let me know, what do you think this was an effective marketing campaign? And what would you do if you won a case of Bud Light? Would you also use it as ballast for a hot air balloon? Or I mean, what would you do with that if you were to win it? As always, I'd be fascinated to hear what you have to say. Going over to the political part of the podcast, you have the Supreme Court allowing Idaho's puberty blocker ban for kids to stand. Now, this comes to us thanks to End Wokeness on X Twitter. Let me pull up that really quick. And he says, quote, breaking, the U.S. Supreme Court rules that Idaho can enforce a ban on puberty blockers, hormones, mastectomies for children. Under the new law, doctors and healthcare providers can face up to 10 years in prison, unquote. And it only moderately went viral. I was thinking to go more, considering the significance and the ripple effect this will have, not only in the medical industry, but also culturally, politically in the United States. Now, yeah, they've got 429,000 views and 12,000 likes, which, again, that's not nothing. If you have maybe 0.5 of a second, if you could click that like button on this video, I would, of course, greatly appreciate it. Now, at the same time, you have these other states that are acting as quote-unquote sanctuary states. So if you want to remove body parts for your children, you can go over there and I guess technically they are a doctor, they will do that, which is quite concerning to say the least. And they could also, in some cases, prescribe these drugs to the kids that were engineered originally for sex offenders. And we have no studies on long-term effects of children as well. It also sterilizes them. Most people with a modicum of intelligence would call those types of acts horrific, evil, to say the least. But there are Americans who believe in that, and there are people who will vote for places to allow that to their children. There are people who move across the United States for that, I was about to say ability. Just sounds disgusting all around. This is one of the few topics I'm fiercely against the concept of. I think it's morally, mentally vacuous, to say the least, especially when they use the cliche argument of, the kid's asking for it. The kid wants this. When, again, no one with a modicum of intelligence would allow their child to drink, get a tattoo, smoke, or any of the other cliche things that, again, you're not allowed to make those decisions because you were a child. If you want to, as an adult, there's a time and place for that. Now, that being said, even these types of surgeries are still debatable among many when it comes to even if you want to do it later in life. Another topic for another time, perhaps. Now, one of the first comments from this comes from Paul Zazupa. He says, quote, oh, geez Louise, if the tech will work for me. He says, quote, this is an awesome precedent that's now been set. Now, any other state can similarly block these procedures and protect children from the perversions of gender ideology. Today, children won thanks to Trump's SCOTUS. I'm clicking 44 likes. And you could also debate, it's also thanks to Ruth Bader Ginsburg being one of the most selfish, mentally evil people of all time. If Ruth Bader Ginsburg was not so hungry for power, if she retired under Barack Obama's presidency, Obama could have appointed someone else. Now, she was so hungry and just narcissistic, very similar to Feinstein, they worked until the day they died, regardless of mental capacity. And because she just had to hang on to that power, she expired under Trump's presidency, and he was able to nominate some constitutionalist, which made a lot of people angry. You also have Libercat Media TM responding, saying, quote, you're telling me I can't pick my bedtime, but I can pick my gender, unquote. And that particular meme got, pull this up, 183 likes. You also have Red Wave, oh, let's see here. Libercat Media TM also says there's no such thing as a trans child. It is a child with a dress. It says that. And you also have the trans, not the flag, but it's the colors of the flag behind the child. Let's see. You have Gunther, or say, you have Young saying, quote, huge win for child abuse, getting 513 likes. Let's see here. Gunter Eagleman says, quote, this is what winning looks like, getting 276 likes. You have, let's see here. Got a couple of monitors trying to... You have Miss Bigglesworth meme saying, quote, I love this. This is the best news ever. And there's a prescription bottle that says they, them. And it looks like it's Lois from Family Guy with green hair and a cliche cow ring on her nose. And she said, and it says ugly people with no personality or skills, getting 67 likes. Scrolling down, you have more and more. You also have Red Wave Press saying, quote, awesome news by Idaho. Mutilating children is pure evil. Every state should follow Idaho's lead. Follow if you agree. Getting 114 likes. Let's see here. So I was trying to see if is there any contrarian statements. The Libercat Media TM also has a black and white picture of a child, and it says in reality they're not after you, they're after me. You need to be in the way. Getting 34 likes. It's quite concerning in some states and countries. If you do not transition your child when the child says they want it, the child will be taken away from you, and in some cases you'll be jailed. I highly recommend everyone tune into Matt Walsh's old documentary called What is a Woman? They talk about a heartbreaking story where that happened to a father's child, where the mother decided to transition the child against the father's wishes. You also have someone by the name of Who is the Wonder Wolf? And it has a gif of Yoda from Star Wars or Star Trek. I always forget. Kidding. I know people worship the Star Wars. And it says, quote, what trans people need to know. And it says, woman, you are not a pathetic man you are. And quote, getting 5 likes. So as the youth might say, well, perhaps the opposite ratio. In this case, and wokeness was purely vindicated. I mean, pretty much everyone was agreeing with that original statement. And it will be interesting to see the ripple effect. People will move across the country due to this, believe it or not. And we can't help but think it will be a matter of time before this becomes, I wonder, let me know in the comments, do you think this will eventually become a federal law? You do have some states like California that'll fight to the death to allow these types of procedures. And of course, the antithesis, you have Idaho, you have other states that'll fight to the death to protect the children. So it'll be interesting to see if this ends up being a big presidential debate in terms of the major topics voters are looking for when going to this 2024 year election. I mean, we already know kind of this has become a political issue. People on the left want this, not all the way, all of them, but many of them are voting, and that's one of the things they believe in. And people on the right are against allowing the transition to children, and people in the middle are going, "Dear God, what the hell is going on with our country?" And I wonder, I mean, how will Trump address this? How will he use this as Biden? I think Biden will probably run with this. We'll see what the White House says. They put a press release when it comes to this specific topic. If there's, the rumors is they're going to expand the Supreme Court and pack it. That's been a rumor for several years, though Biden has publicly said in the past that he's fervently against it because, again, it would politicize the court forever and pretty much break the last semblance of hope anyone has for equal justice in the United States. But let me know, do you think this is going to be a hot topic for the new year, or this year rather? And do you think other states will follow? As always, I would be fascinated to hear what you have to say. Now going over to the business blunder of the day, you have Trump media and technology stock continues to crash even a little bit more as they announce that they will be issuing new shares of stock. Now, interestingly enough, kind of the differences between using things like Brave versus Google versus Microsoft Edge, which everyone realistically, I'm pretty sure they just call Windows, what is it? Old Internet Explorer 7.0, whatever number they're on, even though they technically killed the product. I'm pretty sure most people talking will just refer to that as that. But if you just Google, Trump Media DJT stock or Trump Media Company stock, they don't show you the stock ticker off the bat. They show you the Dow Jones Industrial Average, which I can't help but think the average person who's searching for this data, that's not the actual thing they want. They want the thing that's been in the news past couple of weeks and being heavily talked about. But nevertheless, if you go to Brave, as you see, well, I was about to say, as you can almost see right here as I pull it up, you'll see their stock is not doing great. And granted, by the time this video is rendered and uploaded, the stock it'll most certainly change again, but it's currently trading for about $22.82 per share, which, again, about $20 for a share of stock sounds good. However, their IPO was much, much higher. Now, if you look, again, that was the past month. Trend is down 54%. This week is down about 35%. It started around 57, peaked at $66.22 per share, and it's been going down ever since. It's not great. Now, interestingly enough, we had a similar instance with, believe it or not, Facebook back in the day when they first had their IPO. I believe the IPO was around $34 per share. It crashed, relatively speaking, and it went down within the first couple of weeks. It lost about 43% of their value, which is almost comical to think because right now Facebook is about $500 for a single share of stock and astronomically successful. Now, the issue with the Trump Media Company is they're not fiscally viable yet. They're losing money. They're trying to gain as much clients and users as possible. That's not all too common for a tech company. But one of the issues is they also just announced they're going to try to issue more shares, where I don't I don't know if that's really going to help the situation. I think that's one of the reasons why the past couple of days the stock actually went down a little bit more. So there's a lot of discussion of, they don't have that many users in general. They're still struggling to build up the company. And social media is one of those fiercest things in terms of having a new company come out of nowhere. And the biggest driver, in my opinion, for why Trump Media Technology Company, why Truth Social was worth anything, was lack of censorship, and Trump is there. Those are the two biggest things that I think give people a compelling reason to join the platform. That being said, Elon Musk bought Twitter. So granted, Twitter still censors a lot, is by no means perfect. But now that Elon's in charge, there's been an exponential decrease in censorship on the platform. And now, again, you built up those clients, a lot of people are just going to stick using Twitter. And there are people on Twitter, or X, who just repost for Trump. So Trump will post first on Truth Social, so that gives you an incentive, okay, let me log in and see what he's saying if you're a big Trump fan. But someone just immediately reposted it on X Twitter. Yet again, you have even fewer compelling reasons to go check out what Truth Social is all about. And truth is, I still haven't signed up for an account. I might in the next couple of weeks just to learn a little bit more about it, maybe show you some screen grabs or show you a little bit more about what does it entail. But issuing more stock and it's just going down, and they need to come out with a game plan and say, well, or perhaps more eloquently communicate their long-term goals for the company, how they're going to grow it. And then, of course, if Trump does sell his stock, which he might have to with the court cases going on, if he does that, he will get the money, but it will also tank the stock. It's one of the precarious things about being one of those founders of those companies. If they were to, and that's why, like, even the Waltons, they recently made headlines for selling a couple billion. The value, of course, of the stock that they own total is much greater than that. But as soon as you do that, the stock goes down. So if one of the larger shareholders were just to liquidate it all and sell it all, that would make the situation even worse. So at this point, I'm not even sure how much Trump could realistically sell without completely destroying the company. So I just don't see it being, again, issuing more shares. It is just a business blunder. But I mean, let me know, do you know anyone, anecdotally speaking, who's actually signed up for a Truth Social account? And more importantly, are they an active user? Do they go on the platform every day? What kind of value are they getting out of it? But losing more than 50% of your stock price value and saying you're going to issue more shares, driving further speculation is going to go down even more. I gotta say, that is certainly the business blunder of the day. Thank you, everyone, for taking the time to tune in today. Again, I'm trying to get to 4,000 subscribers by the end of the month, so if you could click that button, I would greatly appreciate it. Also, leaving a thumbs up, thumbs down, or comment is a great way to give me some additional feedback, letting me know how I can make the show better and better. Lastly, don't forget to take the time to tell your family, tell your friends, tell your coworkers, heck, tell your enemies, tell anyone and everyone. Just stay safe, fight the good fight.